best and worst emergency funds. 3 best, 3 worst. We're going to start with the worst. And our goal today is to share with you really bad ideas for your emergency fund and then really good ideas for your emergency fund.
Welcome to the Physician Sense Podcast, a podcast designed specifically for physicians, offering a breakdown of complex financial topics to help you develop your financial IQ, further your financial journey, and improve your well-being. Whether you're a medical student, resident, fellow, or attending physician, you're sure to learn something new that will benefit your journey. And now, your hosts, Chad Chubb and Tyler Olson.
Welcome to another episode of the Physician Sense podcast and YouTube channel. I am your co-host, Chad Chubb. I am joined by the wonderful, the fabulous, the fantastic, a man who is making good progress on his home office, if you're watching us on YouTube, Tyler Olson.
Good to see you, Chad. And I am very proud of my ceiling. A friend of mine recommended it because just to give it a little bit of texture. So I'm trying to make it look like one of those fancy New England homes from the 1800s that's been turned into a museum where the ceilings, you look up and you're like, oh, look at those ceilings. Like that's what I'm going for.
I'm already getting that vibe. I don't even want to know the color yet. I just want I want to be like, I want to get on a record one day and just be surprised.
I wasn't going to paint it, but now I think I should.
What about the sidewall? What about the back wall?
Yeah, that probably should get some color. You're right. It's too beige, isn't it?
Well, I'm just saying, I'm not an interior designer, but if you put a little color on the ceiling and then a different color on that wall, give a little pop.
Yeah.
My old office in Philly, we used we called it Wealth Kill Blue. The poor soul at Lowe's did not match it to our logo at all, but it was a very bright blue. Now I just went with contractor white.
There you go.
But regardless, we have a doozy today, another fun one. I told Tyler before I gave him this topic, many of you would be shocked on how we come up with these ideas. Tyler and I pretty much just sign into our studio here and we're like, what do you want to talk about today? Sometimes we have questions prepared, but other times we like to just wing it. But this one, I got the idea from Christine Benz over at Morningstar, actually one of my favorite personal finance writers out there, does a lot of speaking, actually very, very big in the white coat investor community as well. But she had an awesome post on pretty much best and worst. She did a list of 10 emergency funds, which I love this topic because this is also a very popular topic for everyone, but in particular in the physician community. So I came to Tyler. Tyler started laughing his butt off. He said, this is great. Let's do it. So we're doing it live. Tyler and I are going to trim a little bit of the fat. We're going to do 3 best, 3 worst. We're going to start with the worst. And our goal today is to share with you really bad ideas for your emergency fund and then really good ideas for your emergency fund. Sound good, Tyler?
I'm ready.
Okay, we're going to start with the worst. Now, Tyler and I do not know what our 3 worst are. Now, we do know the main article, so we know what the 10 list was. So we're each going to say our worst 3, and then we're going to have a conversation about it. Tyler, you go first.
The worst, by definition, would be the one that's going to cost you the most right out the gate. So that's going to be credit cards that are charging you full-on interest. Now, they're also the most accessible forms of liquidity. So it's understandable because there's no collateral. There's nothing, you're not backing this loan with anything. So it makes sense from like a business standpoint. But boy, it should not be planned to be like, well, instead of saving cash, I'm going to use a credit card instead, just in case something happens. The second one, and we can go into the details because I have a lot to say about that. But the second one is stocks in a taxable brokerage account. Like I've seen that over the years, like where people say they're like, well, I've got stocks in my brokerage account and I can just sell them if I have an emergency. I'll just give you my third one then first. The third one would be a home equity loan. I find that you buy a home, and of course you want to buy a home because you want to live there and you want to have control of like your environment and you can make changes and you can make it your own, create memories. But we are also doing it from a financial standpoint of, in time, that's going to be gone. And I find that the home equity line of credit concept is going against that. You're basically just eating into like whatever equity that you built up. And I kind of feel the same way about renovations too. And I'm not saying like, I know a lot of people are in a situation where like if they want to get this patio built or whatever, and they have no choice but to do the home equity loan. I really prefer there to be like a cash savings position or plan, because it's just eating away. But that's not even what we're talking about. We're talking about emergencies. You have a home equity line of credit and you're just pulling from it. I don't like that. So those are my three. What are yours?
We're very close. Very close. Actually, our 1 and 3 are the same. So I agree. Worst option is credit cards. My second option, though, I listed 401k hardship withdrawals. So not a loan, but a hardship withdrawal. And then third, I put HELOC as well, or home equity line of credit. So let's start with credit card debt because we both agree on it. You gave a little bit of context there. It's expensive. I mean, more of the story, it's extremely accessible, right? Anyone with a pulse can pretty much go get a credit card these days. Yes, there's a credit check, but even with absolutely horrible credit, all they do is charge you 30% interest instead. So the most expensive option, credit card debt, I would even add an extra layer to that, is using a credit card as an emergency fund quickly goes from an emergency fund topic to like a long-term debt type problem. And that's where like proverbial snowball starts to build, right? So I couldn't agree more. Credit cards, I don't think you needed us to tell you that, but it's not a good spot for your emergency fund. And don't comment us on, oh, but 0% rates and oh, balance transfers. Like don't go down that rabbit hole.
Why not? Why not?
That comes back. That comes back. I feel like there's so few good wins where you're like, no, I did like 7 balance transfers, but I never paid, but I eventually paid it all. Like,
yeah.
And I think we're blessed that we do work with the physician community, right? We most of our close circle, right? Usually we only see credit cards earlier on in the game, right? They build up some during their training or maybe in medical school, but like we're going to get at it. We're going to go after it. But I think that's a good first. Do you have the actual article with?
Yeah, I've got Christine's article pulled up. The credit card piece.
Oh yeah.
First of all, the far majority of emergencies can be paid with a credit card. So, like, and this comes up because, like, sometimes the access point for one of the best emergency funds takes a few business days. And some clients of ours, they'll be like, well, is that going to be an issue? And we're like, well, in the case of an emergency, it's not like you need to have like 10 grand in cash. If that is the emergency and cash is required, I don't know if I want to be around that sort of situation, because like, I don't know what that would be. In most cases, a credit card is available, or the emergency happens and you don't get the bill yet. You know, we could be talking about, you know, damage to your home and you're going to have to pay the deductible, or, you know, same thing with like a car accident or a medical emergency or something like, you know, something in that order. It's either you're going to have at least a few days before you actually need to make the payment, or a credit card could be used. So we're not saying that don't pay for emergencies with credit cards. We're saying that your access to credit is the emergency fund itself, and you do not have cash to back it up.
Yeah.
The second thing is, I understand that anyone who's in training, especially like interns, I do talk a lot about, if you are trying to stretch between your last loan repayment and your first intern year paycheck, sometimes the 0% interest credit card might be your only option. And that's not what we're talking about either.
Yeah.
Those are like desperate situations where it's like, I don't have cash. I can't have cash because I don't have a job yet. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about, you have a job, like, especially for attendings, like, and I think that this is not going to commonly happen with physicians, but sometimes I've seen doctors, they get out of training and they want to buy a house right away, and they're just going to gut all of their savings in order to make the down payment and to make the closing costs work and everything. And they're like, I don't have any cash, but I've got my credit card just in case of an emergency. And I don't like that.
Yeah.
That's where I'm coming from with that. All right. What about hardship withdrawals? What don't you like about those?
Yeah. So again, the way you described it at the start, I like that. Like total cost, you could argue, depending on how quickly you pay off the debt, 401k hardship withdrawals, depending on the amount, could be even a larger total number, right? Because the problem here is now it's not a 401k loan. I don't love those either, but a hardship withdrawal is saying you're actually pulling the money out of your 401k and you do not have intentions to put it back. So you're saying like, hey, if the proverbial poop hits the fan, I'm cool. I'll just take the money out of my 401k plan. That's what I'm referring to here. That is bad for a lot of reasons. First one being it's a retirement account. You don't want to have to touch it. The second one being that, let me actually give you three. You have ordinary income tax. Most of our listeners are not over the age of 59 and a half. So you also have a 10% penalty on that. And then you're going to miss out on ideally compounding growth for decades, if not the rest of your life. So when you talk about the total hit from that, again, it depends on what the credit card balance was and the rate was and how long it was prolonged. But those two would actually they're like kind of two juggernauts there on the total cost of that. So I listed the 401k hardship withdrawal because of kind of the three gut punches you get to come with it.
Yeah. Yeah, that is tough. Yeah, I can appreciate that. And then home equity line of credit, a HELOC. I talked a little bit about like conceptually from a planning philosophy standpoint, why I don't like it. Because you're going in reverse. And it can feel like you're not, because you're not going to feel it in like a credit card balance showing up on a statement or like a balance going down on your 401k, or like a cash withdrawal from your savings account. It's a little bit more removed. That's what I worry about.
Yeah. I'm going to make a full disclosure on this one. I don't see it often, but I can tell you that a few times in the past, we've had clients join us. They did not have an emergency fund yet, but they did own a home and they had equity in the home. And I, completely honest with you, I told them, and to this day, I would still make the same recommendation. I would suggest getting a HELOC just in case before we build up your emergency fund. So again, client completely buys into the idea of like, hey, I'm going to build up emergency fund. We're not taking out a HELOC to pay off like credit card debt. And like, it's just like, you're going to get it. You're going to sit on the shelf. Ideally, we never use this. But heaven forbid, while you're just getting on your feet, you're a new attending physician, we're building up the emergency fund. I'd rather have that be there than you defaulting to credit cards or 401k hardship withdrawal, or, in your example, like liquidating the taxable account. So I have used a HELOC as a backup emergency fund.
Sure.
We just don't want that to be the primary emergency fund for the bulk of you. I actually will apply almost all of you.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. We take that approach too, where if there is a home that's already in existence, looking into getting an access point, because normally it doesn't cost anything to have it in place. You're just not actually borrowing the money. So yeah, no, it's certainly better than credit cards. It's a perhaps less evil of the evils.
Yeah. And it's, HELOCs are also expensive now. Again, like before when HELOCs were like 3%, it actually didn't sound that bad. Now, HELOCs are 6, 7, 8%. It kind of depend on a few things. One we didn't get into on your bad side that I just want to circle back to is though, so your number two, though, you're referring to actually going into call it a taxable brokerage account and liquidating positions as your emergency fund.
Yes. And I see now, if we're talking about someone that is like very, very wealthy, I can see there being a point at which this is a moot conversation where it's like, well, I've got millions in my taxable account. It's going to be okay if I have all $50,000 of my emergency fund in an index fund, and then I'll just sell that if I need to. Even if the market's down, I'll be fine. That's another level. I'm not talking about that scenario of like the mid to late career physicians that may be in that situation. I'm talking about like someone that's been really aggressive about building up their taxable brokerage account, and they got $250,000 in there, or $300,000 or $400,000, even $500,000, and they start thinking, what am I doing with this $40,000 in my high yield savings account or in the money market fund? Oh no, I just gave away one of my favorites. I think that was probably fairly obvious. But my problem is not that, it won't be there. Right? Like, it's not like I don't have a reasonable concern that someone's $300,000 taxable account is going to lose 90% of its value. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about behavior. I think that we benefit from having money in specific places for specific purposes that does not get commingled with one another. And I view that like even like with cash savings, like that's one thing like I love about Ally is the bucket system where it's like, this is for my new fence. This is for our car replacement. This is for our roof. It's great to be able to identify those dollars and be able to like, when it's time to pay for it, man, it feels good to be able to pull from that. Same thing. When you have like an invested fund, like a brokerage account that's fully invested, what is that? What is its purpose? And how can you train your behavior to support long-term investing in that case? I would say not commingling your hypothetical emergency access point with that, because then you have to be thinking about like what needs to be sellable, and like if you're going to do any sort of rebalancing or any sort of tax loss harvesting, having that in the back of your mind, it's like a thorn in my brain if I would have to do that. I just don't think it's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the total value of that too, it's very similar to the 401k withdrawal. The 401k might have a few extra penalties on it because we're getting it too early, but the total value of pulling money out of that account, and maybe we do have, if there's capital gains, right, and a short-term notice, could be a tax issue there, but we're missing out on that compounding growth thing going forward. So total value hit on that one by using the emergency fund would be a large number. Yeah. So those are 4, because we matched up on, So those are 4 good ones to avoid as your emergency fund. I'm doing a lot of air quotes today for some reason.
I think it was 6, isn't it? It's 6 because we each had 2.
Well, no, I mean, but we both agreed on credit cards. We both agreed on HELOCs. So the only difference,
right,
yeah. So 4, 6 total, but 4 different ones.
Right. Okay. I can do math, I promise.
Yeah, that's what I would say. We're good at numbers, I promise. All right, so drum roll it. Headed into the best now. So same idea. List your 3 favorites. I'll give you my 3. We'll talk amongst the audience.
Okay. So my number 3, 401k loan. Number 2. Number 2 is money market fund in a taxable brokerage account. And number 1, high yield savings account. How about you?
Okay, we agree on number 1 together. High yield savings. I don't think that's a shocker to many. I do have taxable account. I have that as my number 3. So we do match up on those 2 again. My second one, though, was I listed a traditional bank account.
Oh, I see. Like, so you're just saying like a Bank of America 0.1% savings account.
Checking for savings. Yeah, like your brick and mortar banks that they don't have any good interest rate, but it's still like very liquid.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. Technically, among like best in terms of access points and like and risk and annoyance, that would be better than the 401k loan. I was lumping high yield savings in that realm, I think, because I just figured that everyone can do a high yield savings, but sometimes people don't want.
Yeah, but how many times do you come across that where people still don't have a high yield savings? Like, it's actually amazing.
Yeah, no, it's pretty common.
With large numbers too, like just getting 0.01 on like a big number. I'm like,
yeah,
this is low hanging fruit here.
Yeah, no, it's very common. I think it might be like a trust issue because, with banks like Ally, they're not around the corner. It's entirely online. So that might be something that's an issue that people have trust issues or, sometimes, and this is just a gimmick, is when someone gets a mortgage from a local bank and they say that they've got to keep $250,000 in their checking account if they want to get the mortgage. I'm like, maybe that's so when you close on the mortgage, but then after that, you can do whatever you want with your cash. That makes sense.
Our Tampa house, when we bought this home, they try to say like you had to keep a large amount in a checking account to pay the mortgage. I was like, I'm not going to do that. So you guys can either get this or not. And Can you believe it? They said they didn't really care that much. Sometimes you just got to push back a little bit. So
sure.
I want to get started with your number 3, though. Why do you list the 401k loan?
Because you are paying yourself back.
Mhm.
You're paying yourself back in interest. It's kind of like if you're in a situation where you have fully depleted your high yield savings, you fully depleted your money market fund. If your 401k is substantial enough that you qualify for the loan provision, which usually is $50,000 in value,
Yep.
then I find that it's a better option than things like, selling your taxable brokerage account stock or like a HELOC or, other options, because, if you don't have any liquid cash and so you need to access it, you borrow the money, you don't pay penalties or taxes on it, and you do have to pay it back, and there's like usually some sort of arrangement that you figure out, and there's usually flexibility with like the timing of repayment too.
Mhm.
But you are paying interest on it, but the interest is paid to your 401k account. So you're not paying a bank to borrow your own money, you're paying yourself to borrow the money. So that's why I like it, because it kind of is insulated from the stresses of a taxable event with selling assets. And you're kind of having to hold yourself accountable. It's almost like you're penalizing yourself, but that inherently benefits you because you're paying the interest toward yourself. So that's why I like it I don't like it ideally, but in terms of, dire emergencies, it's a good option.
Yeah, I probably would have had it in the. I would have been close with it. I probably would have had it like 4 or 5. The only downside I always have with 401k loans is if the market goes down, you look like a genius. Best call ever. But if the market had a huge rally, or let's just say, this will go live in July, but a couple months ago, market had a 10% day essentially. Like that would have been a really bad day to have your 401k not invested. So that's why I had that one probably just a smidge lower, but I agree with all your pros. That one con I think is the only reason why I kept it out of my top 3. My 3 and your 2 are similar though. So you had a money market taxable account. I listed just the taxable account. For our practice, the way that we always like to do it is, we have your traditional emergency fund, and then we like to get a taxable brokerage going pretty early.
Mhm.
But the one unique thing that I wouldn't say unique, but the one thing that we do is we usually will mix in like a 60-40 mix. So 60% equities, about 40% bonds. In those bonds, probably mix in some muni bonds here to keep the tax bill lower. But we're trying to build in a little bit of conservative allocation, similar to what you're probably doing with the money market, just in case if things get crazy. That's where that part of the portfolio ideally is still stable, if not maybe increasing if there's a flight to safety. But and even in our financial plans, we actually label that as emergency fund. We call it level 2. Level
Mhm.
1's the bank. Level 2 is this, because there's also a point where you don't want to have too much money in the bank, right? Because you're probably not getting in full market cycles. Ideally, you're doing much better in the markets. So that's why we've always kind of taken this hybrid approach of not cash, but not like 100% equities, right there in the middle. So I look at that as my number 3. But I think you and I are very similar, where we're probably just using maybe some municipal bonds,
Mhm.
where you're probably using a little bit more of the money market account.
So you would say municipal bonds are like a source of like, that'd be like your number 4?
No, we'd have those inside the taxable account. Like that would just be inside of me listing taxable account for our number 3.
Uh-huh.
I would have just a lower risk allocation in there.
Okay.
We usually start with a 60-40 conversation.
Right.
If clients are more conservative, maybe it's more than that.
Mhm.
We have some clients that are only 20% equities, 80% bonds in that portfolio. And I say municipal bonds, but we still have some taxable bonds in there for bond diversification.
Mhm.
But I can tell you, 14 years or so, I don't think we've ever had a moment where a client ever was like, holy smokes, Chad, we just went the whole way through a level 1 emergency fund and we got to tap into the taxable account. At least not as a surprise. Has there been events where clients are like, hey, we're doing this or adding this and we have time to prepare for it? Yes.
Mhm.
Which is why we like to have a little bit of equity exposure in there too, because again, I think we're blessed to say the group that we work with that higher income, hopefully higher bank accounts, they're in a good spot. But that's why we'll mix almost a little bit more of a bond allocation in there for the safety part of it.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's reasonable. It's like a backup.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I mean, there's some variation. We don't want to be dogmatic about like what is the right way, what is the wrong way. There's multiple right ways here.
Yeah. I actually thought your number one was going to be cash value life insurance. So to be honest, I'm shocked.
Chad, man,
It does everything, Tyler. It does
yeah.
everything.
Oh, oh
You
my
don't need
goodness.
anything else. Financial plan. If you had that as your number one, everything
Yeah.
would have been so much easier.
You know what? No, I'm going to go ahead and say that is definitely number two. Definitely a number two right there.
I see what you did there.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. No, in the grand scheme of things, like with like the full spectrum of options there, sure. Like if you've got everything all laid out and you got you're maxing out the pre-tax, post-tax accounts, taxable brokerage account, and you're building out some like specific situations. And there are some, like I even talked about it a couple days ago on Twitter about special needs planning, estate tax liquidity, buy-sell agreements, long-term care multi-use, equalizing inheritances. Those are some permanent life insurance use cases. And if you're in that scenario, like, mid-career, particularly, I'm thinking mid and late career, that's when these things can start to come into play. Sure. Like there can be that can be an access point that would be better than credit cards.
Yeah.
That would be better than a 401k hardship withdrawal, of course. So absolutely not number one by any stretch.
Well, and again, all joking aside, I mean, the amount of times that we will have a client come to us and like, hey, my parents bought me this whole life policy 25 years ago, and it has a couple $1,000s in cash value. That's actually not a bad example of like, hey, it's there, it's already in good health. Like, you can use that as an emergency fund. So for some of you, that this could actually be higher. Like as we're making a joke of it, only because that we make jokes about permanent life insurance. But for some of you, you could roll into that and you already have something that's been there, right? And the cash value could be a good use of emergency fund if you already had it. I wouldn't be like, hey, I'm going to go buy $1 million whole life policy so I can crank away $4,000 per month just to build up an emergency fund. That's not what we want you to do. But if you're coming into this and your parents bought you the Gerber policy, when you were a little baby there, maybe that cash value should be carved out as like a little backup emergency fund.
Sure.
But yeah, I had to throw in a plug for that just because it was on the top 10.
Yeah.
Our number one is the same for both of us. I'm not even going to go into the traditional bank account for me at number two. I mean, I think that's kind of self-explanatory. It's just not as sexy because you're not getting a good rate. But the winner for both of us is the high yield savings, which I don't think comes as a shock. But as we just said, it's amazing how many people still aren't using a high yield savings for their emergency fund, their rainy day fund, whatever you want to label it here. But definitely the winner for sure.
Like this is another reason why I love working with Altruist for our investment management platform, because they have an Altruist high yield cash account that you can open, like that's separate from the brokerage account concept. Yeah. And it's like, I mean, I don't really care where the assets are at. It doesn't have a bucket system like Ally does. So a lot of times if our clients are interested in being able to divvy up savings goals and have like a high yield rate, then Ally is usually our go-to. Laurel Road has a really good high yield savings account too. Plus, if you have any other business with them, it can be helpful to link it with them. But like for clients that want to have as few logins as possible, keep lumping it in with Altruist has been pretty cool.
Yeah, Laurel Road has a great one. I still don't know. I don't know if they have like a trademark on it or a patent or something, but I don't know why more banks have not allowed you to create buckets, because I tell everyone that's like one of my favorite features of Ally. It's amazing how powerful it is just kind of giving a title to certain things. But, Ally, Marcus, which is owned by Goldman Sachs, really good one. Capital One has a good one. American Express has a good one.
Yeah.
Laurel Road is, I think, more common in the physician space because of, their past with student loans and their current state in student loans. So I've more have heard about it, where I think others maybe don't know about it, where, we kind of talked about why some are still scared of Ally because they're like, I can't visit Ally, right? There's not a brick and mortar location. Even though same FDIC coverage and all of that, most of our listeners, I don't think that scares them. But if we kind of keep going up age-wise, I think it probably spooks people a little bit.
Yeah.
They like seeing their bank teller on the corner every now and then.
Yeah, I hear you.
Anything we're missing on the list?
No, I think we've pretty well covered it. I mean, it's good to settle on like an order of operations. What's going to be your priority? What's going to be your backup? And then, red flags, things to definitely stay away from, like we mentioned with the, relying on credit cards or 401k hardship, withdrawals, HELOCs. But recognizing that we're not saying that any of these products are bad. Like we even mentioned, like opening a HELOC preemptively just to have it is a good idea. It's not like the best source of cash in an emergency, but if push comes to shove, it'd be a good thing that you had the arrangement in place, right? So none of these things are bad products. It's just about effective use. So be intentional about this, folks. You'll and then put it down and go live your life. So yeah, I think we covered it.
Well said. Yep. Fun topic. Lots of good ones. Again, I think that's a topic that can be utilized, right? Getting good high yield savings, kind of thinking about the bad list, trying to optimize more of the good. But as always, thank you, Mr. Olson. I'll catch you on the next one.
Yeah, thank you. See ya.
This information is for general purposes only. This information is not intended to be a substitute for specific professional, financial, or tax advice, as individual concerns vary. Please see a financial professional, CPA, and/or an attorney in regards to your own individual situation. Wealth Heals Advisory Services and Financial Planning offered through Vicus Capital Inc., a federally registered investment advisor. Olson Consulting LLC, offering advisory services and financial planning, is a state-registered investment advisor.